Is Councillor Peterson's on? Okay, well, we'll kick off. Okay, welcome everyone to the extraordinary council meeting for today. I'll do apologies first. Any apologies?
Yes, thank you. Through the Mayor. Councillor Jeff Whitten is an apology today. There's a meeting in Newcastle.
Can I have a mover of that, please? Thanks, Councillor Miletto. Seconded, Councillor Evans. All those in favour, raise your hands. Against? Carried. I'll move on to item 1.2, which is the live streaming and recording. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that when you speak at this council meeting, that you ensure you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording will be made for administrative purposes and will be available to councillors. Item 1.3 is the acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the land on which we meet today, the people of the Wiradjuri Nation. I pay respects to elders past and present and extend those respects to Aboriginal peoples of Orange and surrounds and Aboriginal people here with us today. I'll move on to... I've ducked something here. I've missed out on that. And I'll do a recommendation. We've got two appearing by Zoom, but we can only get one up. Can I have a mover that Councillor Peterson be able to join this meeting by Zoom? Thanks, Councillor Greenhalgh. Seconded by Councillor Powell. All in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Item 1.4 is anyone got any declarations of interests? Councillor Kinghorn.
Again. So item 2.3, my husband has done contamination assessments on this land, and since it's a condition of approval that more such assessments are undertaken, he's likely to do more, therefore I will be required to leave the chamber. Item 2.4, Greg's previously conducted geotechnical and contamination assessments for Akura, so I will be, even though I've never heard of them, I will be required to leave the chamber for that one as well.
So both 2.3 and 2.4.
Yep.
Thanks, Councillor Kinghorn. Any other declarations of interest? None. Thank you. As there are no public speakers, we'll go into general reports, and item 2.1 is developing an application 346-221-4633 Mitchell Highway, Lucknow. Move the recommendation. Can I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any speakers?
Question? I realise that our guy's probably more qualified than their guy, but it is concerning when there are sort of major differences between experts on something. So does that happen often? And is it an issue? If one guy's saying it's not a safe tree and the other one's saying it is, then it's just a total opposite, isn't it? So I'm just curious about it.
Yep. Through you, Mr. Mayor, in relation the question of the claim in the arborist report saying it was unsafe was asked for additional information, as I understand from our staff, saying please clarify further. Our staff had done an inspection of the tree and concluded it wasn't, and there wasn't any additional information provided by the applicant. So we go on what we have.
The letter, though, said that, this other person who's an arborist as well, and I know that he's probably the one who's going to remove the tree if it gets removed, so he's got a bit of a, as we all know about pecuniary interests now, anyway, but he was saying that there's damage to the footpath and to underneath both of the buildings, and I just thought that was just totally different to what our guys have gone and had a look and said that it's fine. So I just feel like if something's straightforward, then both of them should say the same thing.
All I can say is our council staff have inspected it. They make their comments on what they can see. There is certainly noted cracking in the footpath. The damage is not significant to warrant any concern about it. There were options of root barriers, so that's where we left the recommendation.
Okay.
Councillor Duffy. Sorry, Councillor. Speaking for or against?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to think that council would probably come back to us in a fortnight with a notice of approval. Myself and the director went out there this morning and had a look, and there's a number of things comes up, but the tree has already been bastardised, like these trees in Locken Street. It's already been half cut away and those type of things there. And there is acknowledgement on both sides of the fences, with both arborists, that there is some damage to the footpath. And the electrical work underground, just within the metres of the actual of the tree, is some electrical works going down the side of the men's shed building. Now, if you have a look at a pin oak tree root system, there it is there. It's fairly widespreading. So for anyone to hop up and say, oh, it's not going to affect anything, we don't really know unless you dig down and have a look. So to say that it's not going to affect anything there is not quite actually true. And it was acknowledged 5 years ago that it was a high-risk tree for issues that could come up with. Heritage impact. Well, the heritage impact, imagine what Wentworth Mine area looked out there in the 1850s and 60s. It would have been totally desecrated, and whatever the case may be, and we're worried about the heritage impact of one tree. You're worried about the heritage impact of what it is, go and have a look at Sovereign Hill in Ballarat and Victoria and see what can be done with a place like that, instead of just trying to save one tree, which is also robbing the family that live in that house there a northern sunshine that's next to their living room area. I think they're entitled to have that. Sure, there's windows open there, but they're bedrooms. In the living quarters, they don't get the sun in the winter time when people normally go to the northern side of this house and get a warmth of coming in from the sun. I just don't understand that how this tree is so important. I mean, it looks awkward. It's alongside a normal tin shed that was nothing to do, or similarly looked like a shed that was built in 1850 or 1860. So to me, it's not all that important. I'll be voting against the recommendation because I think these people are entitled to that, but the issues that the tree raises itself, I think, don't match up with saying, hey, it deserves to be thinged. We see so many other trees in this town just disappear because our arborists say they're not good. But we have to stick up and save them. I don't support knocking trees down for no reason at all, because I was the first one with Councillor Taylor to stand up against those trees in Anson Street. So don't think that I go the other way. But this one here does propose issues for the owners of that land, and it also could affect our own property right alongside next door, which is within probably a couple of metres worth of the electrical works, and what other works is underneath the ground, I don't know.
Councillor Maletta.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm not an expert or an arborist, but I guess what I do understand is legality and liability. My question revolves around the issue of liability, and should we vote to maintain the tree, and it is foreseeable that the root structure of that tree then cause further damage to other property. My question is to council, is the ratepayers or council liable for any further damage which may be caused based on the reports that have been provided?
Mr Hodges will answer that one.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the court case that's mentioned in the council report, Timms versus Shoalhaven Council, page 6 of the report, does talk about liabilities that arise from trees that are dangerous. So that's where we've done. So we've done an assessment based on that liability in that case, and conclude that it would be reasonable to keep the tree there, knowing that court case. In terms of does it's still up to anybody to maintain their asset. So it's a private tree. There is other options there, such as the root barrier system. So if they don't put those in, to prevent further damage to a building, then I'm not seeing the link to council. We've looked at it from a tree branch fall point of view, like a structural point of view. It's not the type of tree known to drop limbs like a gum tree. So.
I guess when we look at the comparison between root barrier system what that cost would impact on the landowner, and the possible removal of the tree. I mean, I'm assuming they'd be miles apart cost-wise. Are you able to provide any insight into what the cost would be to provide a root barrier around the tree?
It's not fully around the tree, it's just on one side of it, between the tree and the house. I'm not sure whether Mr. Morner has any idea of the cost of root barriers. They're only PVC, they're not significant, and certainly would be less than the cost of removal of the tree.
Any other?
No, just provided there was no amenities, not amenities, but I suppose piping, electricity, or pipes or anything like that. I'm assuming that may impact on the ability to provide any type of barrier. Not knowing myself what was there, that might be a inhibitor for that solution. That's all. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillor Peterson?
Mr. Mayor, okay. A couple of points, and I just forgot the first question. And with, oh, sorry, yes, sorry. Yes. And the tree we replaced. Consider that this morning when I was on site with Councillor Duffy. And it sort of raises the question going, if there's a need, whilst there is some distance from the tree to the house now, enough that staff think that it's not of significant concern, but if it were to be removed on that basis that it was concerned to the house, what would the replacing trees in the same area would bring about the same problem in a few years anyway. So I'm not sure whether, if that's the reasoning, what that would achieve, putting trees back in there. We'd normally do ask people to replace trees when they put them back there, but given the distance is so far from the house, I'm not sure where the trees elsewhere would go. In terms of, and the second one, please, Ms. Davis. What's a significant tree? Yep, thank you. It's a heritage conservation area like now, and therefore when we look at the significance of trees, so measured at the chest height, if they're greater than 300 mils in diameter or higher than 4 metres high, is what makes a tree of significance that needs to have development consent for its removal. You still need consent for particular trees to be removed in town. Often they're handled with a tree removal permit, but in the conservation area or heritage items, they need a development consent.
Can I ask a question, please, through you,
Sure.
Mr. Mayor? So Councillor Duffy mentioned that 5 years ago it was identified that this tree had potential issues. So what is the difference between now and 5 years ago? Has there been any significant changes or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, council staff have asked for additional information over the past few months and it hasn't been forthcoming to give comparisons of the details.
Any other speakers? Councillor Evans.
The question I have relates to the power lines and service wires. Now, in the applicant's arborist report, they've said it's in proximity to power lines and service wires, which in the reasons for refusal isn't noted unless I've missed it. Do we know how far away it is from those service wires, and is there any expectation that it will interfere with that public infrastructure?
Just 1 second. Photograph in the report on page 14, where the top photograph can actually shows the high voltage lines coming through the town there, that the tree gets trimmed by essential energy around those power lines, as many of the trees do through the city. So the setback for those would depend on essential energy zone criteria. for separation based on the voltage.
So they would come to us if they thought there was reason for concern.
Or they trim what
I'll
they
trim
need
it.
to. Notify us generally when they're servicing particular streets, but they don't need to get our approval for that.
And there's been no reports of issues prior?
Essential Energy, not that I'm aware of, no.
Thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillor Mallard.
Thanks. Yeah, I just want to speak in support of the recommendation. And I think we've been given a pretty clear-cut report from the staff, and we've got recommendations based both on the assessment of the health of the tree, and of the heritage impact. As someone who drives to Bathurst regularly for work, exposing the side of the men's shed there, it would change things as you come into the gateway to the village quite clearly. And look, I've got to say the report that accompanied the application was extremely light on. Haven't had follow-up indicating what that assessment. That argument that it's unsafe, and explaining what contradicts the opportunity to try and address the problems in the application.
Question of clarification, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind. In regards to the applicant being asked to provide further information, was the applicant provided with a deadline to provide the information?
I think you should stay up there, Mr. Hodges. Sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not aware of our standard letters where they'd go out. I have a period of 14 days, I think it is, to respond. The staff I'm expecting that those letters went out, but I know in the last few months there's been a number of phone calls between the applicant and the assessing officer. So I'm not sure whether in the detail of those conversations they said you must get it to me within 7 days.
Mr. Mayor, if that being the case, I'd like to move an amendment to the motion, please.
Sure.
My amendment would be that council write to the applicant, give them a firm date to respond based on the fact that I have some concerns regarding liability, etc. I think that we need to firm up our position and provide a date for the applicant to respond to concerns.
I'll second that. That noise. Councillor Floyd, could you mute? Is Councillor Peterson also muted? Unless I want to. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Floyd. Yeah, I'll second that amendment. So I have to do the amendment. Anyone want to speak for or against
Read out again.
the amendment? I think Mr. Greenham missed it. He's doing something else. So can you say it again, please, Councillor Nardo? Sorry.
Yeah, my amendment would be that council formally write to the applicant and with confirming a date to respond to, then allow
Concerns.
Yeah, just to shore up our position, etc.
So it's a deferral.
Yes, just a deferral.
Deferral till we get more information. Does anyone want to speak for or against the amendment? No? I'll put the amendment first. Are those in favour of the amendment, raise your hand. Against? Unanimous. So I'll put the amendment comes to the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. I'll move on to item 2.2, which is development application DA 202/1135295 Mitchell Highway. I'll move that. Seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Any speakers? I'll quickly speak. I think it's fantastic that shed has been sitting out there pretty vacant for a while, and we talk about appearances when we come into town. I think that'll be fantastic, and seeing new tenants out there and new shops, it's only a plus. So this is very positive. Any other speakers? No other speakers?
Sorry, just ask a question.
Councillor
Do we
McDonald.
have any idea what sort of
Mr. Hodges, get those steps up.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there are restrictions based on the zone out there of what shops can go in there. So it can't be just straight shops. It's so it's not retail. So it's specialty retail, which effectively is the bulky goods style of development. So it's not going to see something that we would normally keep in the CBD be able to be going out there.
out there?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for that. Just want to support this 100% because it's been empty for quite some time, quite a number of years, and it's not a good look coming into town where it's just looking at a vacant spot. You think you're coming into a ghost town, especially when you get down further where the old DPI was. There's a number of empty shops there as well. But I think it's a step in the right direction. I look forward to the shop opening. It's just a sign that the actual the business community does have a lot of faith in the City of Orange, and I think that's extremely important, not only for everything but for jobs outside the actual industry that's going to bring here.
Councillor Miletto.
Thank you. I certainly support the recommendation. I just have one question. I was approached by some business people who indicated that they were of the understanding that there may be 5 businesses going in there and not 4. And one of them may have been a child amusement centre. Is there anybody able to confirm that's the case?
A recreation facility, I'd have to take that use on notice and check our local environmental plan. Come back to council on that one.
That doesn't answer the question, though. Has there been an approach made to council?
Sorry, I thought you were asking about if the use was permissible out there. I'm not aware of one to our staff.
And through the CEO's office, there's been no approach through the CEO.
Mr. Morner. Yep.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I've had one conversation with a person that was interested in exploring that option. They were aware of this DA to create 4 premises out there, and they were exploring whether it was possible to put in a indoor playground for children, for example. And I'm also aware that that person had had a prior conversation with one of our other staff on the same matter. But it was an initial conversation about, we're thinking about doing this, and then it was predicated on this DA going through and then predicated on it being a permissible activity. So it's just an introductory line of questioning.
So I guess based on what you say is that, and Mr. Hodges says that we're just waiting for Mr. Hodges to come back to the next meeting and provide some feedback with regards to whether that would be permissible.
Hasn't been yes, that's right. It hasn't been a formal request.
Regardless.
Hasn't been a DA lodged. It was just a phone call at this point.
Thank you.
No other questions or comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise your hand or say aye. Against? Carried. We'll move on to item 2.3 and 2.4, which Councillor Kinghorn will be leaving the room. I just want to let everyone know that our live streaming has stopped, but the meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the council website. So we must have some more technical difficulties. Let it be shown that Councillor Kinghorn has left the chamber. I'll move on to item 2.3, which is DA 306/2021, 142 to 158 Listerfield Road. Have I got a mover? Seconder? Or?
Happy to move it.
Thanks, Councillor Moto. Seconder? Councillor Power? Any speakers? Councillor Peterson?
You happy for me to answer that one? Yep. Okay. The road layout that you see in front of you at the moment is generally in accordance with our DCP. Some of them are only accessing a small number of houses, so they're actually quite narrow roads as well. So a through road actually helps with servicing those roads. So if we're trying to put a garbage service through there, it helps with that rather than taking up the room with a cul-de-sac arrangement on one end of what have you. But it allows for a good flow through for both pedestrians and traffic through the estate.
Councillor, did that answer your question, Councillor Peterson? Thank you. Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I guess want to make some general comments about my thoughts on this, and then I might have some specific questions about the alignment of Applebox Street that's in there. But just noting, I guess, I'm concerned we're varying from what's in the master plan. Thanks. Hopefully that's better. We're departing from the Shirley DCP and the master plan quite a bit in terms of the arrangement of lot sizes, in particular, no compact lots whatsoever in the proposed subdivision. I can see it's a lot of medium lots, so they're still reasonably small, but it's more uniform than I think the vision for Shirley was. And I'm also concerned that those smaller lots, our draft housing strategy has been talking about the importance of 1 and 2 bedroom dwellings being what we need in town for families to come, and also the affordability of properties is going to be a crucial thing out of this, that smaller lots are going to be more affordable, smaller houses more affordable, cheaper rates as well. So I guess, I went back and looked at the Shirley master plan, the DCP that was adopted said proposals must demonstrate a diversity of lot sizes and types that will support different lifestyles, housing styles and affordability. Lot sizes and types should also take into consideration a number of factors. But it says the decision to consider changes to the master plan will be considered by council on a case-by-case basis and subject to council's satisfaction that it meets or exceeds the DCP's aims and principles. So we're getting 13 fewer lots. We're getting less variety in the lots. So I'm a bit concerned about that. I'm wondering if we're going to see more and more slippage in what Shirley becomes through these developments. I can see, given that it's not proposing really large lots, I'm probably still comfortable with this subdivision going ahead. But I'm worried about the way that slippage seems to happen and how that's going to affect affordability, because I think we've got to think about housing affordability in every decision we're making about planning for the city. I'll go on to my question about the realignment of Applebox Street. So noting there that the comments from in the report that stage 3 of the proposal is to demolish the existing dwellings, and that after that the original alignment of the street would be perfectly valid. My question, I guess, is if we were to impose a condition requiring the originally intended straight alignment of that street going straight to where the intersection was meant to be, what would that change in terms of work that would be needed in the earlier stages? So I can see there's outbuildings along the edge of the property there. Are they going to have to go as part of establishing the setbacks that the conditions are covering, or will it change what needs to be demolished at that earlier stage 2, I think it is?
So the continued use is permissible under this arrangement. So the owner of the residual lot will be able to keep those buildings in place and have the road constructed around them. If they choose to subdivide in the future to provide the setbacks that are required under the DCP, there's certain buildings that would have to be removed. And obviously some buildings are currently on proposed boundary lines, so they would also have to be removed to allow that subdivision to take place.
Thanks. So if we were to impose that condition, say, okay, Applebox Street needs to be straight, we'd basically be requiring them to knock down the outbuildings now that otherwise wouldn't need to happen. Am I understanding that right?
Yes, to some extent, but also I wouldn't recommend it because there is some misalignment under the DCP already. So if you see through Apple Box and particularly on Figure 2 on page 54, I'm referring to, you can see how a straight line of the Apple Box centre line comes through and is slightly misaligned with the Apple Box to the east continuance. So it doesn't align under the DCP. What we've actually proposed here is a staggered T-type arrangement that actually meets the standards to correct that, but it also at the same time allows the continued use of the current dwellings to remain.
Good, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Mallard. Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe I've oversight on my behalf then, but I'm looking at stages. I understand there are 3 stages. Stage 2 indicates 84 residential lot, one of which is public reserve, and 5 roads. If we go to stage 3, it indicates a further 9 residential lots. When I read down further and look at the director's comment, it refers to 94 lots. So maybe my maths is wrong here. 93 plus 9.
4 plus 9, wasn't it?
3 plus 9.
Stage 2.
84, sorry. 84 plus 9. Give you 93, not 94. Or my maths wrong. We've got 84.
Yeah.
Stage 2.
Yeah.
9.
Nine.
9 in stage 3 gives you 93. But when we look at the director's comment, it refers to 94. I'm just wondering where the other one went.
For you, Mr. Mayor, I'd take the report over the director's comment. The assessment officer would have that one correct. I may well have misguided there. I'm just looking at page 54, which is the top of page 54. It's got the summary of the lots. It does.
It doesn't say that though.
Oh, when we look at new residential subdivisions, we always count every single lot, whether it's a drainage reserve or a park or house blocks. So apologies for that confusing, councillor, but that is one of the lots would be considered as a park.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Miletto. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you,
Oh,
Mr. Mayor.
sorry,
Sorry, Councillor Miletto. I thought you were
that's
finished.
okay. My apologies, Councillor Duffy. With regards to these 94, 93 lots, is there any requirement for any affordable housing or social housing to be included in any of this development? Obviously, as highlighted by Councillor Mallard, there's a huge concern in Orange. Whilst I certainly support the release of certain blocks in the future, I'm interested in whether any of that will include social or affordable housing, whether there's any of that designated, and also a time frame which we could expect to see some of this development start to occur.
In regards to the permissibility of affordable housing down there, it would be permissible in that zone and on these lots. Whether that goes ahead depends on the market down there of a provider, but they would be permissible. There's no proposal for any of the housing types in this. It's just purely the subdivision. And the second question there, Councillor... Timeframe. In talking to the applicant, they're very keen to kick off very quickly. So they haven't quite finalised their engineering design just because they want to make sure that nothing changes with the approval, which you'd expect. But they're super keen to do this development and a couple of others in town.
And with regards to the headworks, council would be required to get up to the boundary. How far off are they? Location? How far away?
Yeah, just through the mayor. Couple of things here. Most of the lots in this subdivision are under 500 square metres. There's 4 of the lots that are actually under 400 square metres. There's some smaller lots. The headworks that have already been constructed through there, and we have 2 sewer pumping stations servicing this area. It's up to the applicant to take the easements over adjoining properties to connect into those existing services.
Thank you.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, my main concern about any of these subdivisions is not the lot size or the amount of lots. I think the quicker we flood the market and bring the prices down so young people can buy homes, the better. But my main concern is the infrastructure of roads, having them wide enough. We don't want to finish up what we got up there at Pearl Court. We got up there off Diamond Drive. You got something like 30 or 40 residents, and they've only got a road from here to there wide. I mean, it's not practical for a service vehicle such as a garbage truck or a fire truck or a bus or whatever that goes through these areas. I just thought I'd put in there to make you happy, make you smile. That's my big concern, but that's something we'd have to fight with the state government over. I mean, we don't set those rules. The state government set those rules, and maybe we can get it changed in there somehow and focus on that. Look, as for the reserves, I mean, does any of us know how much we actually spend on parks and gardens and keep for those things? It's in excess of $5 million a year. We've got plenty of little parks around this city, and I'll give you the example. The one up at the roundabout there, which is virtually absolutely useless to us. Could be sold off and let something else be built there because they're just costing us money, and 2 reserves in there is just going to cost us more money. We've got these wetlands that we're putting in anywhere and everywhere. I support those, but just putting a reserve into place just to have a reserve for the sake of having a reserve is not a good thing. All it's going to do is cost ratepayers money. As far as I'm concerned, it's just not necessarily needed. Maybe we should have been putting that into making roads a little bit more wider, whatever the case may be. But you know, as I said, we've plenty of times here when Councillor Jones was here, we're in the business of building a city, not a wildlife park and all those type of things there, but we need to address those issues, especially the cost of maintaining these parks and gardens. High.
Councillor Duffy, thank you very much for that. Councillor McDonald.
I would just like to make a comment that we want to make a livable city.
Speaking for or against?
I'm speaking.
For. Thank you. Councillor Greenhalgh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to make a comment as well. I think with the majority of the families in Orange being young families, a lot of them potentially are single income families or single parents. So they shouldn't be disadvantaged by not having a park, particularly when we're going to approve a DA for smaller lot sizes, which leaves less room for kids to kick footies and have trampolines and stuff. So I think having a couple of small reserves, the majority of ratepayers would be more than happy to accommodate that. Notwithstanding, there may be some, Councillor Duffy, in town that we could find better use for, but I think in a new area, it's definitely something that should be considered.
Councillor Evans, you've already spoken. Councillor Mallard, did you move it? Who moved the recommendation? Okay, no, you can't speak. Sorry. Yeah, Councillor Evans.
I speak for Mr. Mayor.
Yes, you can.
I've just got a question as well. It's great that we've got these subdivisions coming with places for people to live, but I think Councillor McDonald's raised is livability is important, as is serviceability. I understand in the Shirley Master Plan there's scope and plans for a village or some sort of micro centre for people to buy their little goods from. Do we have any idea what proximity that will be to this development and a sort of time frame or when we can expect that service?
Mr. Hodges.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the location of the neighbourhood shop area is just at the top of the hill as you're going into the estate. You've got Listerfield Reserve on the right-hand side, the old quarry. It's just on the southern side of that boundary there, so it butts up against that. When would that likely go ahead? Well, that depends on the market. So we don't have any applications before us to build such a development yet. I know the land has changed hands recently, though.
that has been designated for that purpose.
Yeah, it's got under the DCP, it's got those controls on it. So with height and types of development. Yep.
Thanks, Mr. Hodges. I'll put the motion. All in favour, raise your hand or say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. I'll move on to item 2.4, which is, I'll show that Councillor Kinghorn is also declared an interest in this one. Item 2.4, development application DA 23/22 (1), 21 to 25 Peasley Street.
Happy to move it, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Meadow. Moved, seconded by Councillor Duffy. Any speakers? Councillor Duffy.
I think this is absolutely wonderful news. This is going to happen up there. You go up there, it's an absolute eyesore. It was a bit like this old office works that used to be here. It was a pain to have a look at. And this is the same situation up there. Now we're going to have something that is going to be magnificent for the town, create jobs, and it's all good news.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put the motion. All in favour, raise your hand and say aye. I can't see on the... Unanimous. That concludes... I'll ask Councillor Kinghorn to come back in, please. You're back. Wait for you to sit down. Thanks, everyone. That concludes the meeting, and I'll declare the meeting closed at 1:15, and thank you all for your attendance. Thank you.